Sup, y'all? It's Chris. Here to give my predictions for UFC 124, Koscheck versus GSP2. I know I didn't drop a bid for predictions for the Ultimate Fighter finale or Strikeforce, but just been kind of busy and wasn't too inspired or whatever to do a bid for those events, even though I am going to watch them. As for this card, it doesn't have the most star power on paper, but some pretty good matchups on it. I think entertainment-wise, I just think that the main card bouts look like they could be pretty competitive and pretty entertaining. Undercard, not really a lot to say about it. The only fight I'm really looking forward to is Dustin Hazel versus Mark Koscheck, mostly because I'm a Hazlett fan. He's dropping down though from welterweight to lightweight. Kind of surprised me when I heard that. This is a guy that I never really saw as a small welterweight. I mean, he's really tall and lanky, but I don't know. He had a couple tough losses in a row. I guess he figures fighting a lightweight is going to suit him better. As long as the weight cut doesn't affect him, I'll probably favor him. You never know how a weight cut's going to affect a guy. 15 pounds is a lot of weight to drop in the lower weight classes. Both guys good on the ground. I'd say Koscheck's a little bit better. At least credentialed. I don't know, man. Hazel is slick on the ground with the jiu-jitsu as well. Standing, neither of their strong suits. Expect an even battle there, but I think based on the size advantage, like I said, once again, as long as the weight cut doesn't affect him too much, I'm going to favor Dustin Hazel to win this by decision. On to the pay-per-view portion of the card, televised portion, whatever you want to call it. Starting up, you got Stefan Struve taking on Sean McCorkle. Struve coming off that big comeback win over Moorcraft. I forgot Moorcraft's first name, but I know Moorcraft was beating the living hell out of Stefan Struve in that first round, and somehow Struve was able to survive second round. They were just firing punches toe-to-toe, and Struve caught him and finished him off. Christian Moorcraft, I believe it is. So a good, exciting win for Struve. McCorkle, UFC debut in his last fight, beat Mark Hunt. McCorkle is an interesting guy. Talks a lot of trash. He's been talking so much trash leading up to this bout on Twitter about Struve. I don't follow McCorkle, but people retweet a lot of the stuff he says because they think it's funny. I guess. I still am not for sure if Sean McCorkle is UFC quote-unquote caliber. Sure, he beat Hunt, but that doesn't really say much. Look at Hunt's recent record. He's pretty much done. I favor Stefan Struve. Hopefully, he didn't let McCorkle get in his head too much, unless it's going to inspire him. But I think Struve's too good and too well-rounded for McCorkle. I see Struve winning by submission or TKO somewhere in the first, second round. Joe Stevenson, Mac Danzig, both all former Ultimate Fighter winners. Both on a bit of a downturn, Stevenson's lost 3 of his last 5. Mac Danzig's lost 4 of his last 5. So both these guys need to win, especially Mac Danzig. Mac Danzig, if he loses, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get cut at this point. As for who I favor in the bout, I'm going to go with Joe. I think he's looked better in his losses than Mac has. Joe's actually improved, I think, a bit since moving down to Greg Jackson's camp down in New Mexico, training with those guys. Developed smarter game plans. Getting a little more well-rounded still, even though he's been in the game forever. He's been fighting since he was like 16 or 17, I believe. But I just think he has edges in wrestling and maybe even striking over Danzig. I expect a close bout, competitive, distance bout. Could go 2 rounds to 1. Could be even controversial, but I think Joe Stevens is going to pull this one out. Jim Miller taking on Charles Oliveira next. Miller coming off a win over, I don't remember. Charles Oliveira coming off a win over... Miller's coming off a win over that really big guy. Gleason Tapau. Oliveira's coming off surprising, not surprising, but kind of a surprising win over Efren Escudero, which actually got Efren Escudero cut from the UFC. Oh, this is a good bout, but and I think Oliveira's an exciting fighter. I think he's an entertaining young fighter, but I think Miller's a little bit too much too soon. I was surprised Miller wasn't fighting even though I know he's fighting Kenny Floyd, and I thought maybe it'd be Miller against Evan Dunham for a number one contender shot here, or a title shot. I was surprised to see Oliveira get this shot, but he's a good young fighter, like I said, but got to give the wrestling advantage to Miller. Experience, huge advantage to Miller. Charles is better on the feet. He's got some good jits, but Miller's good on the ground as well. Once again, I just think Miller's too experienced and too much for Charles at this point, so I'm going to go Jim Miller by decision. Co-main event of the night, Thiago Alves taking on John Howard. Both guys coming off losses. Thiago to Fitch. Alves or Howard to Ellenberger, Jake Ellenberger, that is. Both guys, they like to stand and trade. Both guys kind of Muay Thai guys. Difference being, Thiago Alves is just a lot better, in my opinion. He's been fighting a lot longer. He's been training a lot longer. He's a more polished striker. I think he's, power-wise, it's hard to say. John Howard's got some pretty good power in his hands. Thiago, we all know he's got some knockout power as well. But I think Thiago's stand-up game is more diverse. Definitely uses knees more and more effectively, as well as low kicks. On the ground, I'd also give the edge to Thiago Alves as far as the jiu-jitsu. Wrestling, takedowns. No clear-cut advantages there, although I don't see this guy's really going looking to take it there unless one of them gets hurt. But at that point, it might be too late. Bottom line, I just think Thiago Alves is the better fighter at this point in their career, so I'm going to favor Thiago Alves by... Howard's tough. He got that orbital, that serious eye injury against Ellenberger in that fight. He still fought on for as long as he's good. He's tough, so I think it'll go the distance, but I'm going to go Thiago Alves. But either guy could win by TKO, don't be surprised, but definitely favor Thiago in this one. Main event of the night, the rematch. George St. Pierre defending his welterweight title against Josh Koscheck. Josh coming off the win over Paul Daly, dominated Daly in that fight. GSP coming off a dominant win over Dan Hardy. So both guys coming off dominant wins over British fighters, one-sided fights. I think the GSP Hardy fight was a little more surprising. I think people expected it to be a little bit more competitive, although people expected Daly Koscheck to be competitive too, and neither were. These guys fought before. I believe it was I don't know if it was the first fight. It might have been after GSP lost his title to Sarah. I know it was only a 3-round fight. I know GSP didn't have the title at the time. George won the fight. People, including myself, were surprised that George was able to get the better of the wrestling in that, being that Josh Koscheck is such a decorated collegiate wrestler. At least at that time, people were surprised. Now they wouldn't be, because George St. Pierre has showed that he is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Doesn't have the credentials of a Koscheck, but he is a guy, George St. Pierre, that has been able to learn wrestling and execute it just as good as anyone in mixed martial arts. As for Koscheck, he's been on a pretty good tear of late. He's got the win over Daly. If you watch that promo, they show the guys he's beaten. Granted, he did have a loss in there to Thiago Alves, but he's bounced back since then. This is a fight, the Ultimate Fighter's definitely made me more anxious to see it, because I'm not like a big GSP fan, although I do, I respect him. He's he's obviously one of the best fighters in the sport. He seems like a genuinely good guy, but I'm looking forward to it more because of Ultimate Fighter. Koscheck, unless you're a fan of his, he just really can get on your nerves, and he's a guy that if you're not a fan, you just want to see him get his ass kicked. There's no middle ground with Koscheck. It's either you love the guy or you hate the guy. I wouldn't go so far as to say I hate the guy, but I want to see him get his ass kicked because he just talks so much trash. How do I see the fight going? I imagine Koscheck, he said he didn't train his wrestling at all in the first fight. I'm sure he's going to train a lot more here because he expects more of a George St. Pierre to take the fight to the ground. George, ever since that Sarah knockout, the knockout where he lost, has been a lot more reluctant to stand and trade. He's been, kind of just taking guys down and controlling position and beating them down on the ground. We saw it in the BJ Penn fight. Of course, we saw it in the Dan Hardy fight. Also the Thiago Alves fight as well. So, on the feet, though, if they do stand and trade, I think George St. Pierre is much better. I think Josh Koscheck may have a little bit of better power, and he has improved his boxing. Although I still don't believe that Koscheck's striking is at the level that Joe Rogan would lead you to believe every time he fights. But it has improved quite a bit. But I still think George St. Pierre is better with the boxing, and much better with the kicks. He's just a good stand-up fighter, which we saw earlier in his UFC career. Unfortunately, he just doesn't exhibit as much anymore as he used to. I'm hoping he does more so here, because I think he could really outstrike Josh Koscheck pretty convincingly. But he may be worried about getting clipped and getting hurt. So, probably going to see more of a ground war. I do think Koscheck will be able to get some takedowns here, at least more than he did in the first fight, because it is a longer fight, and he probably will look to work his wrestling more. George St. Pierre, the thing is with his takedowns, it's not just that he's a good wrestler, he sets him up real good with feints, and with the striking. He'll feint an upper going for a punch, and his opponents always react, and then he shoots in. He's got great timing with that. It's probably his most successful thing as far as scoring the takedowns. And of course, once he gets on top, it's hard to get it's hard to get out from under that guy. He's just a really good top position controller. Same with Josh Koscheck. But it's hard for me to pick against Georges St. Pierre in this matchup, especially after the first fight. Like I said, Koscheck should have more success than he did in that fight in all departments, but I don't think he's going to have enough success or have improved enough to beat Georges St. Pierre. So I don't know if it's going to be similar to the first fight. I don't know if it's going to be more exciting, less exciting. I do think it'll probably go the distance. Both guys are tough. Although, if either gets hurt, any guy can go lose at any moment in the fight. Any fight, which what makes it exciting. But got to favor Georges St. Pierre. Probably by decision, because he's been kind of winning by decisions, except for when BJ Penn, his corner stopped it. But Georges St. Pierre, he kind of plays it safe at times. Think he'll do that here. I don't want to say he plays it safe. He just, he dominates, but doesn't take too many chances or risks. Don't see the guy getting subbed. Decision fight, Georges St. Pierre, probably 4 rounds to 1. So yeah, I'll be talking about this event more tomorrow on Science Finance Radio Show, as well as recapping the Ultimate Fighter finale from the night in Strikeforce, and of course talking boxing for the boxing fans. Science Finance Radio. Put a link in the information part of the video as usual, as well as a link to my Twitter. Want to hear your guys' thoughts on this event. Are you looking forward to it? I know a lot of people aren't really looking too forward to it. How do you see the main event going? Does anyone think Koscheck's going to win? And yeah, what fight are you looking forward to the most? I imagine it's probably that one, looking at the rest of the card. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Be back next week, or talk about these fights afterwards. But until then, guys,